All right, Bitcoin hitting another local high as we start to break through 39,000. Many people are starting to look at Bitcoin could be breaking 40K. Does it make its way to 50K? We're going to try to break all this down for you guys today in this one for sure. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. All right, so let's get into a couple of points here. And I want to start with this statement here from the Daily Hodl. This is one of the analysts that has been looking at this. And 3 weeks ago, he said that a 3840 region would end up being kind of a top. Maybe for a bit at least. So it was for a time, but now it looks like it's just a rising floor. So I'd love to kind of get you guys' feedback. Obviously Bitcoin hit 39K today, starting to see a lot of action, ETH coming in on 2100. What is your current position right now? Are you continuing to dollar cost average into Bitcoin? Let me know with some comments down below. Further in the article, it kind of hits on this right here. It says the thing you have to think about is why would you sell right now? You have to think about other people, whales, traders, etc. Why would you sell if you know it's almost guaranteed the prices are going to be higher when the ETF is greenlit? Now you got still potentially another month before we see, and really that first 2 weeks in January are going to be the key on an ETF. An ETF likelihood about 99%. I think everybody's kind of pushing to this right now. I'll get to that in a minute. We're going to get into a full ETF rundown for you. But would you run this up? If you're buying Bitcoin right now and you're taking it to 40K, 45K, 50K, if we do see a 50K pre-ETF, can you imagine a 50K Bitcoin? That's the likes of the previous bull run. But would you sell at that top? So kind of selling the news, and would you wait for that market correction and try to come back in later? I mean, some people are looking at those two strategies, holding on through or going ahead, taking the market, and then maybe possibly getting an under somewhere around a 30 to an under 30. We had Tom Crown on yesterday talking about this. Could we see an under 30? And if it did come in under 30, then you'd basically be entering your position below where you went in now if you were dollar cost averaging. So I don't know. I'd love to get your feedback on where you think it might go. Here's Kobayashi kind of hitting on all these points. Part of this, I think, is because of what happened with Chair Powell. And mainly just he talks about cutting interest rates are premature, so I think everybody agrees with that. But he did hint that more hikes could be ahead. That's an interesting point because he has not necessarily really leaned into hikes in his past meetings. The Fed plans on keeping the policy restrictive, at least until they're convinced inflation is heading back to 2. We do see inflation continuing to drop, even though we are seeing GDP growth, which is an interesting narrative. But their narrative overall has not changed, and markets really kind of continue to call for a Fed pivot, meaning let's get off these high rates, start to move back into the market and all that. So we're going to break down whether or not the ETF is a potential and what is the timing here, because there's going to be some key things that could be playing into strategy building up in the next market. Before we do that, I want to thank our sponsor for a moment, so let's just hear a word from them.
Looking for a reliable way to trade Bitcoin with up to 100x leverage? Margex.com is your place. One of the things I really want to focus on today, though, is their copy trading feature. If you go over to the dashboard within Margex, pretty easy to navigate. Obviously, you have the capability of going in and measuring your own leverage, but you can do something there called copy trading. Just hit this tab right here. It'll take you into copy trading. One of the things that is really cool about this is it's very simple to use copy trading. You can do this on the mobile app without all these, kind of irrelevant services. All you have to do is register. You can deposit, follow some of these traders, and then, of course, you can potentially profit on all this stuff. The platform charges no fees, so it's 100% of the strategy profits are split between the traders and the followers themselves. So that's the cool part of this. A lot of these profitable strategies are operated by professional traders, so you get a chance to kind of see how the pros do it. And unlike other copy trading platforms, your return on earnings always equals your return on earnings of the strategy. So you get a chance to follow these strategies. You can see the ROE right here by some of these top earners here. Very interesting aspect around copy trading, and it is one of those to get going with. You can start with as little as $10, and the cool thing here is profit withdrawals can be made daily. So when you're over on the platform, you guys get a chance to do traditional trading, or you can go into what I think is one of the best out there is copy trading. Of course, check this out over on Margex.com.
All right, so let's get into a couple of points here. I want to go over and hit on this tweet right here with Gareth. Jerome Powell kills the dollar, crushes rates, markets rejoice, vertical move on the SPY, opposite to the Dixie 10-year move. If you look at the Dixie right now, and you can kind of see it, this is when it hit its recent top right there on October 3rd at 107, and now here we are at around 103. That's almost a 3.5% drop in a short period of time, really, if you think about that, over 2 months. And we've seen this continued pressure down. Typically, dollar weakens on risk assets like crypto start to strengthen. That's an interesting thing of what we might be seeing right here, because obviously people are looking at where can they go with liquidity, and are the crypto markets starting to see a lot of that? We are seeing this movement in altcoins across a lot of things. If you just look at some of the charts right now, Bitcoin up right now to almost 3% on the day. Some of the other ones that have been flying, there's Avalanche also hitting another one. It actually ran up to 22. And then you've got, let's take a look at Solana real quick. Solana also had that nice little rise yesterday and had been last week, I should say, and then readjusted. And it seems to be on its way to reclaim maybe that $68. But I'd love to kind of get you guys' feedback on this. Are you looking at these premium altcoins as hedges against maybe using the strategy around Bitcoin and Ethereum? If you look at the anticipation right now, part of this is all boiling down to what Chair Powell kind of mentioned there. And the headlines kind of go through it, but I want to play a clip for you guys because it gets into some detail here from him. Listen into what he had to say.
Policy is thought to affect economic conditions with a lag, and the full effects of our tightening likely have not yet been felt. The forcefulness of our response to inflation also helped maintain the Fed's hard-won credibility, ensuring that the public's expectations of future inflation remain well anchored. Having come so far and so quickly, the FOMC is moving carefully forward as the risks of under and over tightening are becoming more balanced. As the demand and supply related effects of the pandemic continue to unwind, uncertainty about the outlook for the economy is unusually elevated. Like most forecasters, my colleagues and I anticipate that growth in spending and output will slow over the next year as the effects of the pandemic and the reopening fade and as restrictive monetary policy weighs on aggregate demand. The FOMC is strongly committed to bringing inflation down to 2% over time and to keeping policy restrictive until we are confident that inflation is on a path to that objective. It would be premature to conclude with confidence that we have achieved a sufficiently restrictive stance or to speculate on when policy might ease.
All right, so a couple of things. I think he kind of hit on everything there in the sense of we're not out of the woods just yet. Obviously, the inflation scenario has to play out, and do we get a 2%? Is that real? And when that does happen, does the pivot start to occur maybe ahead of the schedule that they had been talking about in the last FOMC, which they felt at that time was going to be mid to late next year? A lot of people were kind of pointing to that. Other good news that I think is also causing the market a little bit of awareness to a positive nature of the ETF is this right here, Ripple versus the SEC, and the potential of a settlement. A couple of points I want to showcase here. After the SEC held a closed meeting, this was just this week, to address critical issues, it's given rise to speculation that it could potentially get into a settlement with Ripple, and that would be a pretty big deal. It would be good for crypto in general, obviously very good for Ripple in general. Official announcements did not directly mention blockchain company XRP, and Ripple, but the SEC didn't really share the details in the meeting. But Ripple's chief legal officer, Stuart Alderoty, hinted that he expected the securities watchdog to lose its battle against, obviously, them, and if the case goes to the U.S. Supreme Court. So maybe there's some pressure there. So he knows that maybe the deal is in a place where maybe there is something that both sides could agree to. So very interesting, because if we don't get a Supreme Court appeal, this would be huge for just, assets like Ripple, and maybe starting to pave the way for other assets, which you get into the things around regulation that most likely could still happen in the next couple of weeks. So we're still not pushing that out. And if you guys want to follow the happenings throughout this month, go back to our channel. Check this one right there, that big bull right there on the left, mega bullish December. So what we did on this video is we broke down all of the key dates for December, and really some in January, that you have to watch, because these are the things that are really starting to play into what could be a mega bullish December. Here, of course, is James Seyfert. He's talking a little bit about the window for the potential spot ETF and the approval. Let me play this clip because he kind of hits on a couple of points I think that are important for understanding the cycle here of whether or not Bitcoin could run up to a plus 40K number. Listen in.
Really is so they can line everybody up for approval on the same day, which means that, so right now you have this deadline for Global X that's December 29th. We don't know the exact deadline for Hashdex and Franklin. It's likely to be somewhere around January 5th to 8th, maybe. So that means there's going to be a window from January 5th or some other date and January 10th where all 12 can be approved, which has been the date that we've been saying for months that this thing is going to happen by. So now we're really narrowing in. We thought there was a possibility we could see approvals in December, but the move from the SEC this week tells us that the approvals, again, if they happen, we're 90% odds that they're going to happen by Jan 10. So this move by the SEC.
All right, so this move by the SEC, this point that they're talking about in terms of some of these meetings that are starting to roll up, this was a tweet that kind of goes into this a little bit. SEC meetings with spot Bitcoin issuers, ETF issuers, pretty much voluminous. Nice word there. Point being, there's a whole bunch of them happening at one time. So source around a 99% approval all at once. And this is something that I will agree that whether it's Eric Balchunas or Jeff, both from Bloomberg, they've kind of stuck with that theme, is that they felt like everybody would be approved at once. And when and if that happens, which I believe it will, we are going to see a marketing barnstorm. And I think that is going to change the cycle a bit, because there's going to be such an influx of new information in the market from highly credible investment capital companies that I think are going to start to draw in some people into the market that maybe have not even considered crypto before. So that's a big deal. The other thing that plays into this is the key companies getting ready for the shift that could be occurring in terms of a lot of new influx of not only investors, but just action in the market itself. This, of course, was what Balchunas was talking about, people moves. Grayscale hired John Hoffman. This is a former head of Invesco's U.S. ETF biz. So now you've got kind of the markets of traditional and or TradFi hiring in from crypto, and vice versa, crypto hiring in from TradFi. So the markets are feeling as though they're trying to come together in the sense of personnel, meaning that they're starting to work together. And that I think also plays into the strength of where BlackRock and, even if you look at 21 shares and many of these filers, that it really brings to the table. A lot of good stuff happening. Everything right now, very bullish here. I don't see anything in the markets that are indicating that we could regress, other than the potential, buy the news, or buy the rumor, sell the news kind of scenario. But a couple other things that could play into this. User experience is going to drive adoption. This is, of course, the eToro CEO talking about this. A couple of points he did hit on that I think are valid is that ETFs could be a significant, you have to kind of figure where this is coming from, eToro and exchange, but could be a significant driver for adoption because institutions work in a very rigid way, meaning people will trust them. And looking for the same infrastructure, that infrastructure to enable institutional demand to those who don't want to self-custody. That's the other factor that will be very intriguing to me to analyze. Because right now, crypto has been mostly self-custody wizards out there. You think of it, people like you and me, we understand self-custody, we want self-custody, but there's a lot of people that don't want the hassle. They want, just like anything else, a bank, to handle that. And I think that will be the critical step forward in adoption and how fast that does occur. A couple other points right here is Jamie Coots. He was talking about this report right here for Real Vision. And it's talking about the crypto adoption and what it means for these assets in general. And I want to go to this right here because this is talking about Raoul Powell and team have given an awesome product at Real Vision after a decade of subscriber. They've looked at all these kind of things that are stoking the potential of the market. And if you look at what they think is going to be the daily active user model of basically the blockchain. So think of this kind of in alignment with daily active users of the internet. And you can kind of see it, here we are in 2023. Literally, we are happening in the very early stages. 24 could be a big year, mainly because I think of some of the key adoption points. But the big one that really breaks out is 27 when we start to see potentially AI integration. I think that actually may occur before 2027, even though there's a slight amount of it in 2026. But look at this right here in terms of this upswing in terms of adoption. Much like what we've talked about here before on the channel, all this plays into alignment with what the past internet boom was, social boom, mobile boom, all these kind of technologies that get adopted by mainstream population. That's where we are right now. All right, so a couple things right here. Bitcoin still holding that 38.7 mark, wicking right there to 39K. Does it make the 40K? Right now, sentiment has been pretty strong for today. The question will be over the weekend, does it hold this? Love to get you guys' feedback on that. And if you're looking at Ethereum right now, also kind of plateauing a little bit right at that 2100 mark, which has had a little struggle in trying to maintain. It did hit that 2100 mark back here in November, last couple of weeks in November, and wicked right up to almost 2150, which I think is the real key indicator for a breakout for Ethereum as we get forward. All right, make sure if you're not subscribed to the Diamond Circle, get in there now. It's another place where we do additional content. We have a couple podcasts over there. You guys don't want to miss those. And we send out an email. It's a great place to keep caught up with all this stuff, more news, more research, all that. The time is now because it is getting heated and you don't want to get left behind. Time to front run these markets for sure. And if you want to catch me out there on X, it's at Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.